Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do beer stuff here. We do random beer stuff here. Mostly beer reviews, which this is, but I've been doing a series lately. Massive Beer Review Classics, where I go back and kind of review like OG beers for me, or beers that I reviewed in the channel back in the day. This beer is kind of like the OG of OGs when it comes to classic beers, at least for this guy. That'd be Unibroue Maudite. Yeah, longer story longer. I will tell the story of my kind of this beer being the linchpin of me getting into craft beer. So I had craft beer a couple times before I've had this. We're talking late 90s here, so keep that in mind, you know. And I want to say maybe like 98 or something like that. Anyway, had a couple beers here and there. Most of them kind of off of, not top of mind. Chicory Stout would probably be. Dogfish Head Chicory Stout, which they still make, but only at the brewery, I believe. That was one that was kind of maybe like a 1A or 1B kind of thing going on here. But anyway, I was back then, or even up until not too long ago, I actually worked in the body modification industry. I was a body piercer, scarification artist, all that kind of stuff. Well, back in the late 90s, I was part of a website, an e-zine, BME, zine.com. It was pretty much the center of the universe for online whatevers when it comes to, body modification. They had a section for a panel of people that answer questions for people that had questions about body modification, whatever it may be. So they had a certified panel of people that knew their shit, and I knew my shit, so I was part of this panel. And their headquarters was based in Toronto, and they would always have these kind of get-togethers and barbecues. And they had like one big blow-up barbecue, and I was kind of like, you know what? I'm finally going to go up to Toronto. So get my passport, head up to Toronto. Actually, no, I didn't get my passport. You didn't need a passport back then and actually get into Canada. It was the second time I went. Or maybe not the second. Semantics. And ended up going up. And, one of the big things me going up there was like, I heard they have really good beer in Canada. By really good beer, I mean like Molson Triple X. And so I get up there, get settled in, do like a pre-barbecue meet and greet with a lot of people. A bunch of us worked for the website, went up a day early, and met up and I was hanging out. And there was this one Phil guy that I knew from chatting online quite a bit, and I was like, I knew he was into beer. I was like, hey, you have good beer, man. Like, where can I get some good beer up here? He's like, let's go to the beer store. I was like, cool. And we get in the car and we go to the beer store. And by the beer store, I mean the beer store. It's called The Beer Store. In Canada, you buy beer at two different places, essentially. The beer store, which is twofers of beer, or, large format of beer, or you go to the LCBO. Takes me there, and I go, man, there's a lot of stuff, and I have no idea what any of this stuff is. I'm saying that in my brain. I'm like, what do you recommend? And he pointed to this. He's like, I really like this beer. And I said, have at it. Let me get a case of Maudite. And the person says, awesome. And out comes from a conveyor belt a case of Maudite. Over the course of a couple days, I drank this whole case pretty much. Which this is they call it a Belgian Dubbel. I call it more of a Belgian Dark. It comes in at ABV wise. Come on. Why can't you give me an ABV here? 8%, so I'm ripping 8% beers when I'm not used to it. So I got a little shitty. Nothing bad happened, but that was kind of my thing. I came back to the States. I'm going to crack this up and start pouring it. Came back to the States. I knew one of my good friends, the guy who ended up teaching me all about beer, worked at a good beer bar, and I ended up going there and being like, hey, can you get this beer? And he said yes. And I drank that for a couple weeks straight until he said, hey, man, you should try other stuff. And that's a even better story. So let's go from there. So give it a pour, let it breathe for a second. We're talking about Unibroue Maudite. It is a ale brewed with spices, bottle re-fermented. They don't talk about the ale on lees on this anymore, which used to be a big thing for them. It's a double 22 IBU, brewed and bottled by Unibroue Chambly, Quebec. Imported by Unibroue USA, Terrytown, New York. I didn't know they had a Terrytown there importer. This was owned by Sapporo and then was purchased by somebody else. I forget whoever. Maybe it's still owned by Sapporo. Anyway, it's big beer now. Oh no, it was bought by Sleeman's and then bought by Sapporo. Anyway, This is like the label that I remember it being. This little foil top has changed. That little logo there has changed. But this label is very true to what I remember it being. Some of the best art, original art, when I was introduced to beer came from Unibroue. I think their label's quite fantastic. Still kind of old school stylings. And as far as dates go on this has a Best By date of less than a year from now. I looked online. I tried to find I tried to find a hard and fast date on these. Can't really get them. I heard 3 to 5 years, so this could be anywhere from 2 to 4 years old, which I think is pretty good for a beer like this. So, dig on a label, and yeah, as far as the beer goes, it looks double. I was gonna say like Belgian dark, but when I really do look at this beer, maybe it was different back in the day for you on camera. It might look a bit darker, but for me, is spot on Belgian and spot on Belgian in color, and just has this nice kind of mahogany washed out brown orange hue to it. Tight compact head that just, somewhere between khaki and eggshell, and definitely looks the part of a nice kind of vibrant Belgian style kind of beer. Give it a roll. That head comes back in spades. So let's see if we can get a nose in this sucker. Yeah, I don't know if it's just muscle memory or just me being like, I dig on Belgian beers. That's obviously not a secret on the channel, but this one, man, since I made my hay in this, since I kind of cut my teeth on this beer, the yeast phenolic on this is absolutely fantastic. In combination with the Belgian candied sugar and the way the malt kind of comes off, it just has this really rich, might be slightly tardy cherry kind of fruitiness to it, with this nice kind of bready component that you just almost a gimme when it comes to Belgians, more specifically doubles and quads. Dark, so you can get a little bit past that bready component, but it's got this rich caramel kind of it's not molasses, it's caramel, burnt brown sugar kind of vibes to it. So it's that Belgian candied sugar in combination, nice sweet maltiness, this rich fruitiness that has a subtle tartness to it, and then that just, just the yeast, the way it just kind of pops, the combination of bready fruitiness really just kind of comes off for me. So, having not had this in several years at least, I'm really surprised how much I'm digging on this now. No shit, Sherlock, it's a Belgian. I'm probably gonna dig on it anyway, but I think there's a little bit of kind of memories fluttering in the back of my brain, making me think this is fantastical. Probably is. Let's just dive in. Cheers, y'all. That's good. It's not otherworldly. I thought it was going to pop on the taste. It's actually quite the drinking double. Ooh, got a little bit of pop at the end, though. So that tart red cherry thing is very much there for me. It's not sour. It's not even close to sour. But you get this typical reddish fruit. For me, I typically get, a lot of people do. I'm not going to say you do. A lot of people typically get this kind of reddish fruit when it comes to Belgian doubles and quads. And it's very much here, but there's this soft little, slightly, I would almost go more funky than tart. It's a tart funkiness to the yeast in here that adds this little kind of extra zip and component to it. There's this super satiny silkiness on the initial mouthfeel that actually ends up thinning out probably about halfway through. So it doesn't stay like super fluffy, creamy, full throughout the whole beer. Now, granted, it is a double. It's not a quad or dark, so it's kind of par for the course there. And it washes away with the bitterness and dryness. Not overt bittering, but enough to kind of make you want to go back for a sip. Before you can pull that sip back in, though, it rises back with this not sweetened kind of carcinogenic kind of burnt brown sugary thing that I think is a really fun kind of ending for a beer like this. To have it go through those kind of ebb and flows of what you typically expect from a Belgian double, to finish with that kind of slightly bittering but more dry kind of yeast phenolic, but then to kind of tip back up slightly with that burnt brown sugar, caramelized chard. I'm throwing out carcinogenic here. We're all gonna get cancer. I I think it's a cool play. I actually think this is a very, very tasty beer and a very excellent example of Belgian style double. For me, I think the yeast has its own personality to where I think that's where this beer's calling card is. Sans that finish and that uptick of that burnt brown sugar, that is cool in and of itself. But I get that every now and then. But it's really the way that kind of tart red cherry. And when I say tart, again, I need to reiterate, it's very much subtle, very, very light. There's not a big tartness to it, but it's very much there for me. So I have to say it. So I'm not trying to say you're getting a sour-esque kind of beer here. But it is that funkiness, probably a better word to use, that is really the calling card of the beer. Super drinkable, Belgian influence through and through, but its own identity, its own uniqueness in the beer. It's really good. I really do like this. And I can see why I fell for it back in the day. I can see why I got a little bit of a kind of fluttering, little pull at the heartstrings on a sucker, because it really is a tasty beer. Is it what it was when I originally had it? I would venture to say yes. There's something about it that makes me think, like, this is kind of what you remember drinking. Again, palates change, time change, beers change, all kinds of things change, so it's not an absolute. None of this is a science, obviously. But, yeah. I'm a fan. I like this. I dig this. I'm glad I picked it up. A little stroll down memory lane. And, in a very fun way. So to kind of dip back in this beer, I don't think Maudite was the first beer I ever reviewed. I don't think it was. I'm kind of curious now because I didn't look it up beforehand. I wanted to go into this one specifically Fresh. Words are hard. But it was definitely the impetus for me getting into craft beer. It's the one I kind of tout as the one that got me into craft beer. So it always have a near and dear to my heart kind of thing going on here. Good enough for me? Is this one of the better Belgian doubles I've had as of late? Yes. Is it Mount Rushmore status? In my heart, yes. In reality, I don't know. I haven't had a ton of Belgian doubles, so I might default to that. It's worthy. It's tasty. I dig it. Value and availability. I mean, these can be had by me. I bought it as a single. I want to say it was 2 and change. There was a price on here. I probably peeled it off like a dum-dum. Ooh, let's get the drags. But it was you can probably get these for close to 12 to 15 bucks a 4-pack. I think that's what they roll for here. I haven't, paid attention enough to know. And if you like, you like this, if you like Belgian doubles. No shit, Sherlock, but that's where this one lies. And you like that little subtle funkiness. Again, we'll not go tartness here, we'll go funkiness in your Belgian darks. This will do you. Have you been to the brewery? I'm really kind of disappointed I never went to the brewery. I'm overdue for a trip to Montreal. Even though it's more, big beer owned, all that kind of stuff. I will go there. And when I get up there, I'll be hanging, drinking all kinds of ripping good beers, hopefully. And Unibroue will be part of it. But have you been to the brewery? Have you had this beer? Have you had it like back in the day? Have you had it recently? Have you had a bottle that was bottled May-ish 2020 or Best by May-ish 2024? If you had any of that stuff, down there, let's talk about it. Unibroue Maudite. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of Belgian-esque doubly goodness. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers, y'all.